South Korea's conservative movement is having its own Maga moment. The flags, the slogans, and even the right-wing personalities are all adopting a style that's remarkably similar to US President Donald Trump.
And we will make America great again.
So many in the far right see their crusade, see their movement as having synergies with the MAGA movement.
Can Korean politics move past this period of widening polarization? Or will conservatives remain in the shadow of now disgraced former President Yoon Suk-yeol?
Yoon Suk-yeol's People Power Party, the PPP, has remained pretty deeply divided between moderates seeking to move past Yoon's legacy and more hardline far-right factions that have remained intensely loyal, if not necessarily to Yoon himself, who's now in prison, then to the broader far-right cause which he represented.
While South Korea's contemporary far-right looks, on the surface, like a copy of similar movements in the US, it's coming from a very different place.
There's a shared sense of solidarity, but the far-right in South Korea is fundamentally different to MAGA in the US.
The obsessions that animate America's far right.
You know who's not afraid to define the two sexes? Donald Trump.
Are far from the central motivation of ex-President Yoon's die-hard followers.
By and large, what differentiates far-right politics in South Korea are these Cold War legacies, right? Staunch anti-communism and this lurking paranoia of foreign subversion, whether that be from Pyongyang or from Beijing.
Much of Korea's post-war history was colored by a battle of ideologies between Seoul and its neighbor to the north. For more than 25 years, South Korea was ruled as a military dictatorship that was staunchly anti-communist. Authoritarian leaders Sung Man-rhee and Chun Do-hwan both ordered harsh crackdowns on liberal opposition groups, often accusing them of harboring communist sympathies.
It's important to remember the fact that the Korean War never truly ended. So as a result, North Korean and indeed Chinese communism remained this persistent and overarching security threat in the South Korean body politic.
As the nation shifted to democracy, some Korean conservatives continue to view liberal politicians through a lens of Cold War propaganda.
And to the far right in Korea, the political left are not often seen as genuine political interlocutors, but as these subversive agents. And this has largely been colored by this really strong Cold War legacy that still is very present in South Korea today.
For many far-right influencers, this Cold War era rhetoric continues to find receptive audiences in South Korea.
먹으러 나올 때는 뭐 문재인 가처 체포하라, 자수하여 사형당하자 뭐 이런 걸 외쳤었죠.
And there are strong pockets within the Conservative Party writ large which hold a certain nostalgia for former authoritarian leadership.
이승만의 기적과 박정희의 기적이 없었다면 지금 우리도 여기 없다. 이게 제가 이승만 대통령에 대해서
The country's far-right alternative media ecosystem first took off following the impeachment of then-President Park Geun-hye, the daughter of former military strongman Park Chung-hee. Online spaces like YouTube offered South Korean conservatives an alternative to what they were seeing in traditional media.
What's changed the dynamic in conservative politics, and particularly in far-right conservative politics, was the impeachments of Presidents Park Geun-hye in 2017 and Yoon Suk-yeol in 2024. The fact that they were both sent to prison contributed to this narrative of a siege mentality.
바칠 각오를 하고 있습니다.
우리가 가장 중요한 거는 언론을 통해서 뭐든지 국민들이 보고 느끼고 생각하는 건데 그런 부분들이 다 모든 게 다 좌익으로다가 넘어간 편파 보도를 하기 때문에 신뢰를 안 하고 있습니다. 지금 그렇기 때문에 유튜브만으로 우리가 그런 보도를 통해서 여기도 나오게 된 거고.
There is this long-standing belief in the far right that has been amplified over time that there are larger conspiratorial forces at play which are denying the political mandate and legitimacy of true Korean conservatism.
While far-right YouTubers have won over audiences with a heavy focus on conspiracy theories, winning elections has been far more difficult. Yoon's People Power Party has struggled to regain momentum following his failed martial law attempt.
Now, what's particularly striking is that Yoon Suk-yeol's People Power Party, the PPP, did not dissolve or fundamentally reorganize after his removal from office. And by doing so, it essentially missed that window for reinvention.
The PPP lost seats at both the local and regional level in elections held on June 3, 2026. Analysts said the party's poor performance was likely due to its embrace of its diehard supporters at the expense of its more moderate wing.
So lacking a coherent policy platform, lacking charismatic leadership, the party has instead turned to amplify and echo far-right voices emerging outside its official structures.
It's these voices that amplified conspiracies that the June 3rd elections were stolen by shadowy forces. Nationwide, more than 90 polling stations ran out of ballots before polls closed, causing long waits at several locations. Korea's far-right YouTubers were quick to ride on voter frustration as they tried to promote allegations of foreign interference.
So for the far right, the recent ballot shortages were immediately interpreted as vindication, right? Rather than being viewed as an isolated administrative failure, they were presented as evidence of deliberate manipulation, that hidden actors within the liberal establishment or even possibly North Korean or Chinese agents were operating behind the scenes.
총체적인 부실이고 총체적인 부정입니다. 그래서 부정선거가 맞고 이 부정선거를 통해서 반드시 재선거를 해야 된다고 생각합니다.
The chief of the National Election Commission resigned, and a parliamentary investigation into the ballot shortages is currently underway. The question for some political analysts is what the protests say about the PPP's staying power.
So I think this ballot controversy is less significant for what it reveals about electoral administration, but in what it reveals about the deep polarization of South Korean politics, right? The further normalization of far-right narratives that are being echoed online. And so the PPP now has to decide, what does a post-Yoon future look like? Who is going to fill that void? Will they be a moderate who pushes bread and butter issues like economic growth and business competitiveness? Or will they emerge from the fringes which have chosen to embrace, not reject Yoon's far-right legacy?
이 나라 유권자들과 이 적고 무지한 자의 연약한